My colleague Fifi Peters joins me now for a special focus on Steinhoff Africa Retail, the African unit of Steinhoff International, which is fighting for survival after alleged accounting fraud. Star has not been divorced from the crisis that hit its scandal-ridden parent Steinhoff. Investors are worried about Star's outlook, and it shows in its share price as well. Okay, so Jayendra Naidoo, the chairman of Star and BBE partner, joins us in the studio for this discussion. Fifi.
Of course, I mean, the share price at Jayendra, I'm actually looking at a graph right now. You can see you guys are well off your highs, and this clearly reflecting a lot of uncertainty that the market has about the outlook of Star. But before we get to that, I'd actually like you to put your hat as the BEE, a shareholder of Steinhoff International on. Could you explain to us in what way the crisis that has hit that company has affected you?
Yes, I noticed that you refer to us as the BE partner, and we have in our original discussion with Steinhoff agreed on some joint activities to stimulate black entrepreneur development in the supply chain, and basically to promote transformation through the association that we have. But it's quite important to note that when we invested in Star, we did so with money which was our own money at the same price that the market invested. So we have no lockups or special restraints or anything, and we are able to operate exactly the same as any other shareholder.
Understood, but I'm talking about when you invested in Steinhoff International, the deal done in October 2016, in which 60 million shares were issued at a price of 75.98. Am I correct there?
Yes, correct.
So I'm talking about that impact, because we've seen numerous shareholders being impacted by the fact that that share price is now trading at R2. Actually, it hasn't been there for quite some time. But what has the loss in Steinhoff's share price from the time those shares were issued to you, what impact has that come or done to the Lancaster Group?
Yes, well, we have managed to protect ourselves at the point of inception with some instruments. I won't go into the detail of it now, but it allowed us to preserve a substantial amount of value. So, although the share price has obviously affected all shareholders, when you go from 76 rands to R2, doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that there's a big number that's missing there. Mm-hmm. But fortunately, we've been able to protect ourselves sufficiently. Our investment in Star is not far off from where it was at the point of entry, which was R20.50 at the listing. So it's more healthy, still down, and so we are optimistic about being able to recover in the future.
So, Jayendra, are you saying you have not taken as much pain as the other shareholders? Is that what you're saying?
I can't compare it to each and every other shareholder, but we've been able to protect ourselves to a certain extent.
And what can you give us the monetary value of what you haven't been able to protect? So
because we have an external shareholder, which is very much in the public sector, we've agreed that on these matters, we defer to the PIC to make all the communications in the public domain. So I'm not able to discuss this any further today.
Have you been able in any way to have to restructure your transaction that with the PIC that enabled you to be able to make this deal?
Fortunately, as they've reported in Parliament, we already restructured it during last year. So we found ourselves in a slightly protected position in December. So
before the crisis?
We haven't had to do anything more.
This was during the crisis, when
No.
Steinhoff wasn't
during the course of last year, during the listing of Star, so well before the crisis. So we haven't had to do anything more this year. All
right. And many shareholders are having to face the question as to why they didn't do enough due diligence to actually see that something was wrong with the company. As its BEE shareholder then, do you think that you did sufficient due diligence before entering into that deal?
Yes, so what does due diligence involve? You have to look at the company's numbers, which is reported and audited. You have to look at the analyst reports, which is done by various investment banks, or one gets publicly available information from the announcements that the company makes from time to time. And all the information in a listed company that you can rely on is in the public domain when you buy shares. Even if you buy shares by contract, like a subscription agreement, taking into account the vast positive information from all quarters, regulatory bodies, private bodies. I think all investors have been mindful of that. And you couldn't do any further due diligence besides what was in the public domain. Up until recently, some of the stories that are now leaking out through the media about the PwC investigation in Steinhoff, they are news to everybody, even those who were closely associated with the company, who were lenders, who were directors. I'd say there are a lot of things that we are starting to learn now. I don't think that we could really have done it differently then.
Yeah, there are many unhappy shareholders. I'm sure you're amongst them. And we have had many expressions of indignation where people have come in and said they are going to do X and X and X. What about you guys? What are you doing about trying to restore the value of your shareholders?
So I'm here as the chairman of STAR today, and I'd say STAR is the biggest asset in which Steinhoff has shares. They have 70% of STAR. STAR is independently listed, and our work to protect STAR and build STAR as a future champion is actually very much part and parcel of creating value for STAR shareholders and those shareholders who are Steinhoff shareholders at the moment.
Yeah, but we have seen some come through, like for instance, I mean, I think it surprised a lot of people that Christoph Wiese, the chairman of Steinhoff International, came up and said he is suing the company of which he was the chairman. And I'm thinking, looking at you, you're the chairman of STAR. You were standing up and saying, I am going to be doing X and X to the investors of STAR. Does that not also apply to you in the sense that you are a big part of the machinery that was supposed to be storing this value, and we're seeing people who are intrinsically inside standing up and making all these kind of noises?
No, I'm sure that from Dr. Wiese's case, he's making a case based on his legal position as a shareholder, and he's got legal advice. There are other shareholders who have taken legal advice and they have made claims, and I'm sure there are more claims to come. At this point, I haven't made any claims, but should something arise in this space, I'll be sure to let you know.
All right, all right.
But at the moment, there's nothing there.
All right, so you're saying at the moment Lancaster will not be pursuing any claims against Steinhoff?
I'm saying at the moment I've got no comment on this matter.
Okay, but you will let us know the moment you do.
When I have a comment, I will let you know.
But Jayendra, just this last question on this is quite strange though, because a lot of people have lost a lot of money.
Yes.
And not only Christoph Wiese or South African shareholders, we're talking about global shareholders. People are upset at what was done here. And I'm surprised by your calmness or your position as to, not want to, as a businessman, get what was essentially taken from you back.
I didn't say that. I said I've got no comment. I mean, obviously, this is a long-term game. It's not a one-day game. Okay. And claims prescribe after a certain amount of time. It's still, in my view, possible for claims to be made. Steinhoff has fortunately just recently entered into early stages of a lock-up agreement, which could give some comfort to shareholders. Yeah. If that comes to pass, and time for many things to be done that could be beneficial to creditors and shareholders. So it's a very complicated space. Yeah. This is like the Uber, game board of all time in the corporate environment. So one has to just pay attention, and I think when you've got a very big situation, best to focus step by step on what you can make a difference of and fix it.
Just before we go to the break, I wanted just to ask a general question around governance issues in light of what has happened here and in light of the action that we have seen coming from Mr. Wiese, where you have a chairman who is essentially, I think, going back on his management and saying, you did wrong X, S, and S, and X. Do you perhaps feel then that there needs to be a real look at the role of the chairman in all of this? And as chairman, do you feel empowered that you have got strong oversight over what is behind you as the overall head of the company?
Yeah. I think what Christoph Wiese's point is that a chairman or a director can also be lied to like anybody else. You know, you don't know everything because you're a director or a chairman, just as much as an auditor or analyst or a regulator would say that if he's not told the truth, then he, you know, where does he get the information from? And then there are answers to that question. So his claim, as I understand it, is based on his position as an investor, which is separate from his role as a chairman.
Can you separate the two?
Yes, of course.
I'm struggling. I'm struggling because if you're chairman and you are the biggest investor as well, you would imagine whatever happens inside the company surely has to have your say.
No, I'd beg to differ. You know, a board is made up of a lot of people, strong, knowledgeable people.
Yes.
The chairman's job is quite important. I mean, my job in STAR has also been elevated by all the new developments that we've had to deal with. It's quite important to marshal the resources, to direct, analyze the problems, and to take action appropriately. But one's role as a shareholder also brings different requirements to different matters as well.